We're going to start today with a few bars of the Christmas song. So this is a simple melody in the key of C major. Using the techniques I'll show you today, we'll make it sound like this. Or this. Or maybe this. Or what about this? As you can probably imagine, this could be endless. And although they all fit the melody, the chord progressions are all quite different. The basic principles we'll focus on today, though, are looking at harmony functionally, building voicings, and bass movement. So what do I mean by looking at harmony functionally? We need to look at the chords in a chord progression as a part of a landscape, something that provides context. You always have to ask yourself, how did I get to this chord? And where am I going after? A C major triad in the key of C is not the same as a C major triad in the key of G. And it's not only the key that you're in that matters. An A minor 7 in the key of C could be a 6 minor or a 2 of 5. So if we use an A minor to follow a G chord in the key of C, we can see it as a 5 to 6, a deceptive cadence. And that's a great reharmonization of a C chord. We can also expand our view of the landscape to include secondary functions. These are chords that target diatonic chords. So each diatonic chord has an accompanying set of secondary functions. I know it looks complicated, but it's really just a list of chords. Just think of sort of neighborhoods for each diatonic chord. In our example, we replace the C, our 1 chord, with the 6 chord, A minor. So now we can target the A minor with the 5 of A minor, E7, and we get this. And all these lines show us the expected paths for each chord. This E7 wants to go to the A minor here. And you don't have to learn all of these chords. Knowing just a few of them will completely change the way you sound. So let's look at the 4 reharmonizations, and I'll show you the chords that we used and why we used them. So here's our first reharm. So the first thing we can do is change this chord here for a C add 9 over E. These voicings in first inversion with an add 9 sound really cool. Now, I'm going to look at my target here, this C over E. This is where we look at the chord functionally. So this is a 1 chord. This means we can replace it with a 6, right? So instead of C over E, I'm going to play A minor 7. The melody is E, so I can build any voicing like this. Minor 7 chords sound really cool with an add 9. Ninths are great for any chord, major, minor, dominance, whatever. So now that we have this A minor 7, we can target it with an E7, the 5 of 6, a secondary dominant. And guys, when you have a G in the melody, you can still use an E7 to harmonize it. People see this note and they think this is gonna sound terrible on top of an E7, but that's not the case. Instead of seeing the G as a minor third, look at it as the sharp 9. See? Now you have an E7 sharp 9 flat 13, and it targets the A minor chord beautifully. We're also in luck because the next note in the melody is an F natural, which is the flat 9. And as we've said before, the flat 9 and the sharp 9 pair really well together on dominant chords. And for these two notes, we can use many diatonic chords, G7 or D minor 7. But let me show you how the F major 7 is also great. Remember, the 4 chord pairs really well with the Lydian scale, and F is the 4 in C. The Lydian scale is the major scale, but with a sharp 11. Sure, it creates some tension in the chord, but it's the right tension, and it wants to move to the 3rd of the chord, which is exactly what the melody is doing. And let's put it in first inversion with A on the bass and build the voicing like this. First inversion voicings are great in this style. So far, this is what we have. C, then C add 9 with E on the bass, F major 7 sharp 11 over A, our Lydian 4 chord, and then E7 sharp 9 flat 13, and finally A minor 7 add 9. And for the last two notes, we can keep the F major 7, but let's voice it with an add 9. And on the previous note, we can reinterpret it as a secondary dominant, the 5 of 4, C7. And we can also add the 9th. And let's play it in second inversion to create a descending line on the bass. Make sure you always consider creating nice bass lines, which are descending or ascending stepwise or by fifths. On the next two measures, let's just play the first chord in first inversion. And on the next chord, it would be nice to move closer to our final target, this F major 7 on the last measure. So yes, we can start considering our target as early as we want to. If I look at these two chords here, G minor 7 to C7, this is just a secondary 2-5 of the F chord. So we're targeting the 4 chord with a secondary 2-5. This is a great opportunity to move closer to the 4 chord a bit earlier. So I can use an E minor 7 flat 5, which is a lot like a C7, and it would help us tonicize the F major 7 even more. The F major 7 could also be an add 9. And I'm also going to add the 9th on the B flat 7 here. Another great technique is to use sub-5 chords. These chords can replace any dominant chord. For this reharm, I'm going to start from the end and build my reharm backwards. Remember, we're always thinking towards our target chords. So the last chord in measure 2 is F major 7. Let's go ahead and add the 9th again. Now, can I target this F with an extended dominant sequence? And what would it look like if I did? Well, it would look like this. A bunch of chords targeting each other. Now, every chord is the 5 of the following chord. And it's this concept that we're going to use as a starting point for our new reharm. Now let's figure out if and where our new chords fit in with our melody. So these chords fit perfectly here. We could leave this as is, but let's see what we can do to take this a step further. To start with, this C7 can be replaced by a G flat 7, the sub 5. And as we've said before, the sub 5 of any dominant chord can be found a tritone away from that chord and is a great substitution for any 5 chord. Here's a useful shortcut also. The sub 5 is always a half step above the target chord. Notice how our new chord, G flat 7, is a half step above our target, F. And most importantly, it fits with the melody. For the next chord, again, going backwards, we have two choices. We can leave the G7 alone or change it to a D flat 7, the tritone substitution of G7. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. We're going to use a D flat 7 in place of the G7. However, in order to make this chord fit the melody, we'll have to make it an altered chord. This would make the melody the sharp 9 of our new chord. And that's one of the really cool things about dominant chords. They can withstand a lot of tinkering and futzing about with. They love tension. Earlier, we lined up our extended dominant sequence with the melody. You might have noticed that this created a sort of harmonic void on the fourth beat of this measure. I want to show you a great technique that you can always rely on to fill in such gaps, interpolating a related 2. Our void precedes this G7. And what's the related 2 of this G7? D minor 7. 2 minors are an excellent way to approach any 5 chord. But you know what else is a great way to anticipate a 5 chord? The 5-7 sus4. You can actually see this chord as a 2 minor 7 on top of the 5 chord's root, creating a cool sort of pedal point effect. So let's do that here. G7 sus4, void filled. Our next chord is D7. So we'll just swap it out with its tritone substitution again, A flat 7 sharp 9. Again, we're altering the 9 to fit our melody. And the first 2 chords of the song could just be the original C major with an add 9, of course, and then a tonic reharmonization with A minor, the 6th chord, which is really cool because it also acts as the related 2 of our original D7 reharm. And on the last 2 measures, I just want to show you another option that you have regarding the sub 5 chords. So here, we could replace the C7 with the tritone substitution, G flat 7, but we can also use both. So we can have a G flat 7 sharp 11 to C7 to F major 7. This technique will always create a double approach on the bass line. The G flat targets the F with a chromatic approach from above, and the C7 targets the F with a perfect 5th. And these are both great bass movements that you always want to see in your bass lines. And of course, we can add the 9th to the F major 7 voicing. And let's also add the 9th and the 13th to the B flat 7. These are the best tensions to add on a dominant chord. Remember, 9ths and 13ths on dominant chords are always a good bet. So that'll do it for our first 2 reharms. If you remember, go ahead and keep watching reharm 3 and 4 along with all the PDFs of these arrangements. If you'd like to become a member, go ahead and click on the join button or the link down below for access to this and all sorts of other cool stuff. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.